Good and welcome to the Niggly Nishcast. This is the Diggity Doodah, Dr. Peptoid Panther, Mr. Slippers here with the Wobbly Wildcard, and we are here to talk through Ford Trophy Cricket in Aotearoa, which is all wrapped up. The first stanza done and dusted, and now we wait another year or two for the second stanza of Ford Trophy and Plunket Shield cricket to come back around, because the saving grace of the Kiwi summer, everything of New Zealand cricket's bank balances and greater fortune depends on the Super Smash, and the Super Smash is here to push all the cricket we love away. So we will wrap up the Ford Trophy with the wildcard. And wildcard, how excited are you for Super Smash cricket to come along?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not excited, but first of all, I just want to figure out what is it, a Dream 11? What's a Dream 11?
Some Indian supermarket, I think.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's nice and relevant to my daily life. I'm sure they're getting some good exposure in New Zealand from that advertising, so fair play. Take the dollars where they come.
Maybe it's a Indian burger joint, and they're rolling through the
All of
fast
them,
food
yeah.
outlets, and they've run out of fast food outlets that have the money in Aotearoa, and then they're basically New Zealand cricket selling themselves to India. Like, they have the Star Sports agreement. Now you've got this Dream 11. All I know about Dream 11 is it's from India. So shout out to India because they have the money.
If you can't beat 'em, join 'em. I actually think it's like a fantasy sports thing or something, eh? Which presumably hasn't taken off here because no one knows what it is.
Yeah, it just smells like a supermarket to me. The Ford Trophy wildcard is all over. The first stanza is all over, so they'll come back in sometime in January, I reckon. And the Auckland Aces sitting pretty at the top of the table, which is primarily because, and this is the kind of, in writing about good bowlers and good batsmen from the first stanza of Ford Trophy, there's Auckland have Ben Lister, who's second in wickets. They got Will Somerville, who is basically the only fringe black cap spinner to be averaging below 40 in the Ford Trophy. Lockie Ferguson is also doing pretty well. He took 6 wickets in 2 games. 5 of those were in 1 game. Auckland have 5 bowlers who have taken 5+ wickets. So I was thinking, you could paint that as a really dominant bowling stuff from the Auckland Aces, but then you've got to factor it with what their batsmen have been doing. And when you've got Colin Munro, Glenn Phillips and Martin Guptill firing on all cylinders, they're putting what is known in cricketing circles as scoreboard pressure in the atmosphere by scoring runs quickly, and that forces the opposition to play their strokes, and that is like a perfect blend between bat and ball. Like, the batsmen are creating a tempo, a flow of the game that the other team has to try and keep up with, and then that's going to provide opportunities for the bowlers. But it still requires good bowling. But point here is that Auckland have been the best team so far with bat and ball, because Martin Guptill, Glenn Phillips and Colin Munro have all smacked lots of runs with great strike rates, and the bowlers are also doing a fine job as well. So what do you make of those major Auckland Aces performances, and perhaps a bit of balance between bat and ball?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look a bit more and see what situations their bowlers were bowling in each time. But I mean, just thinking back specifically to the very most recent game against Canterbury, well, they scored, what was it, 401 from their 50 overs. So, if you can't bowl to defend that, then you're going to struggle. I mean, they have had some good, solid performances with the ball, but yeah, it is definitely it's built upon that top 3, which is far and away the best top 3 in the Ford Trophy. When you look at it, just the international quality of Martin Guptill and Colin Munro opening the batting, not just international quality, but proven year on year domestic cricket just dominance. And yeah, we talked about Colin Munro a little while ago because he took a couple innings to get going once he came back to the domestic stuff after the 2020 series with England, and which wasn't his best, following on from a poor World Cup, which he was lucky to even be selected for, and then lost his place midway through, sort of thing. But then all of a sudden, he's just come plundering with a couple hundreds in his last, 3 innings. I think he's got 200s, and just demolishing the ball as Colin Munro does at his absolute best. He's scored 326 runs from 5 innings to be the leading run scorer. Glenn Phillips he missed one of those games because he was with the New Zealand A team, scoring 100, by the way. He scored 288 runs and averages 72. He's second on the run scoring, and Martin Guptill's sixth on run scoring with 229 from 5 innings with 150. Glenn Phillips has 150. Colin Munro has 200s. I mean, what more can you possibly, in your wildest imagination, ask for from a top three other than that? It's perfect, and it's winning them games. They've won 4 out of 5 games and sitting comfortably on top of the table at the midway point.
You could ask for good bowling, which is also going to help because Ben Lister he was excellent in the Ford Trophy last season, made a big impact with the white ball, and he has a one-day list day bowling average of 14.33, and he's come here with 5 games, taken 11 wickets at an average of 15.36. So Ben Lister, I always talk about, he's a left armer who gets this wrist position and angle across the right-handers, nipping it back into left-handers. And when you package that with, I don't really want to talk about Lockie Ferguson because he only played 2 games, but when you're working with someone else like Kyle Jamieson, who has 5 wickets at an average of 34, which is pretty handy. Sean Solier does a great job, 6 wickets at 25. And then Will Somerville, who's the best spinner in the Ford Trophy thus far. He's the only spinner who has taken over 6 wickets. The Auckland Aces have every aspect of their cricket team doing their job and doing it nicely. But it's a bit of a what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of scenario. But definitely just want to celebrate just some solid bowling performances because they've had to. It's one thing to say that the Auckland Aces have a unique batting lineup, but there's some other very powerful and strong batting lineups in the Ford Trophy as well. And yeah, just cheers to their bowlers for doing a solid job in that first stanza.
Yeah, and I suppose while we're talking about batting, should probably chuck in Robbie O'Donnell as well. He's got 350s from his 5 innings and doing a few things there. They've got a strong team. We were talking about them in the Plunket Shield preview that we did probably a month or 2 months ago now, and they looked like they had a team that was ready to win a lot of games in all formats, and they maybe they were pretty solid in the Plunket Shield. They had guys coming in and out a little bit, so that's always a bit of a factor. But yeah, really seeing what they're capable of here, and also not to be slept on is the form they're showing right now with their batsmen, who score with their most dominant, most devastating batsmen. Right as the old Super Smash is coming around the corner, so that's also a bit of a factor too. And yeah, there's you never quite know with the old 2020 stuff because it's one of those on your day kind of things. But Auckland looking in good form, coming in ahead of that one as well.
They sure are. They'll be, and I think that's going to coincide with a bit of Test cricket, so they could have a full contingent available for much of that tournament. In terms of run scoring, Munro's first, Glenn Phillips is second, but I wrote about the batsmen today, and there are a couple key notes to make here that is kind of separated between mid-level in terms of experience. They're experienced domestic cricketers who are just solid, very solid at the domestic level, and then you've got the younger bracket. So Dane Cleaver in third, he has a century and a half century, and he is someone who's performed very, very, very well at the Plunket Shield level, never celebrated as being on the fringes of the Black Caps, but he is up there with the best wicketkeeper batsman in the country, and now he's scoring a few one-day runs. George Worker's done very well to start the summer as well, and keeping it with the Central District Stags. Tom Bruce, 3 scores over 50 in 5 innings, and he is one of 3 batsmen who have scored 200 runs with strike rates over 100. So it's been a tough start for the Central District Stags. They've been ravaged by injury, predominantly with their bowling unit, but they still have their, the group or the type of player that has made the Central District Stags such a force in domestic cricket. Those kind of players are still doing the job with the bat. Dane Cleaver, 3rd in runs. George Worker is 5th in runs, and Tom Bruce is one of the more consistent players in the Ford Trophy. And I'm also wildcard. I just want to throw up Mr. Schmullian, who we've talked about specifically with Plunkett Shield cricket, because he just happens to have a Plunkett Shield average that's just dipped below 40 now. He's got a Plunkett Shield first class average of 39.9 after 13 games, and he made his Ford Trophy debut last week in Christchurch, and he just came out with scores of 31 and 61 not out. So Brad Schmullian, someone I'm keeping a close eye on, just because whenever he plays, he does his job, and he's in and out of that Stags lineup because he's like, his stats suggest otherwise, but he is viewed as like coming in for when the Stags aren't quite at full strength. That's how he's tended to be used in previous seasons, and he's just out here 2 games of Ford Trophy cricket, averaging 92 with a strike rate of 108 after those Plunkett Shield numbers. So watch out for little Brad Schmullian there. Bowls a bit of leg spin as well. And that's the Stags unit of mid-tier guys. Like Tom Bruce feels like he's on the cusp of commanding more Black Caps opportunities, perhaps with the ODI cricket and World T20 are on the horizon as well. So tough start for the Stags, but they still have guys performing at a very high level.
Yeah, I quite like old George Worker's stat line here, because he's 5th in run scoring, as you say, 236 runs from 5 innings, but that includes 2 ducks. He's all or nothing, George Worker. Tom Bruce, we've talked about him before in terms of his, because he's one of those guys who comes up in conversation as he's played 15 2020 internationals, right? He's been a guy who sort of has been given that kind of introduction to international cricket, but to this, which is pretty common for Black Caps, just give him to the chucking fellas in 2020 level rather than the other levels, which perhaps they might also be at least equally adept in, because this is definitely the case with Tom Bruce, who, 15 2020s, he seems to have probably fallen out of that squad at the moment, which, I'm just looking at his stats. He's top scorer 59 not out, a couple 50s, average of 21.46 at a strike rate 125. Isn't terrible, but I guess with strong top order that we've got in the 2020 stuff, maybe it's not necessary, maybe it's not quite enough. But his first class average is 43.63. His list A average is an even 35. His 2020 average is 28. This is domestic 2020, is 28 at a strike rate of 146, which is pretty bloody excellent as well. This is a legit 3-format player who probably, to a lot of people who have only seen him play 2020 internationals for New Zealand, maybe wouldn't jump to that immediate conclusion, but he's a guy who shouldn't just be in consideration for 2020 internationals as he has been. You mentioned ODIs. I'm chucking out the test team as well. He should be getting looking for all 3 of those if the options ever happen to come up. Getting into our top order at the moment in the test team is a rather difficult task, unless perhaps if he rates himself as an opening batsman, which probably isn't the case. But Tom Bruce is a fella who's been, he's 28 years old. He's been doing this for a while, and he's been scoring runs in all 3 formats, and it's certainly no surprise to see him having another big season here.
There was a time when I viewed Tom Bruce and Will Young as equal footing for the test team. If there was space in the middle order, one of those 2 dudes was going to get it, because Tom Bruce has consistently churned out runs across all formats, and again, majorly in the Plunkett Shield. There's also a young wave that's caught my eye coming through the Ford Trophy, with Jack Boyle in 4th for runs. Then you got Henry Cooper for Northern Districts. He is 7th. And Rachin Ravindra is 11th, but Ravindra's got an innings less. The Jack Boyle's from Canterbury, and he is dominating one-day cricket in Aotearoa. He's got a career average of 47, which comes after a very solid outing last season. He played 5 games and definitely caught the eye. And then this season he's got 5 games and he's averaging 64. So Jack Boyle is making waves as a one-day cricketer. He's got a list day average of 47. He's got a first-class average of 17. So he performs better with in the one-day arena. And then I look at someone like Henry Cooper. Now, Henry Cooper's the other way around. Like, he caught my eye as a Plunkett Shield opener and a young opener with a fair bit of promise about him. He's got a first-class average of 37 and a list day average of 22. So Jack Boyle and Henry Cooper, 2 young batsmen. Jack Boyle prefers one-day cricket, and Henry Cooper to this point has preferred first-class Plunkett Shield cricket. But now Henry Cooper's come out, and he's batting in the middle order for the Northern Districts Knights, and he finished that first stanza with scores of 45 and 77 not out. His first game he scored 75, so he's got 3 40-plus scores in 5 innings, and is currently averaging 56.75 for the Knights, and that makes him the Knights' best batsman. So Henry Cooper has moved from Plunkett Shield cricket to do a very good job in the Ford Trophy, and I think I said 3 players had the strike rates over 100. Actually, it's 4 because Henry Cooper's there as well. So this is a dude who caught my eye as someone who, like, quintessential 4-day opener. And now he's doing a great job in the middle order with a strike rate that is aligned with the role that he's playing. And then you got Rachin Ravindra, who is kind of the darling of New Zealand cricket, especially in the domestic ranks. He's been fast-tracked through the development process, and he has an average of 50 with a strike rate of 113 from his 4 Ford Trophy games. And he's he's performed in both long format and white ball cricket, whereas the other two have Jack Boyle is definitely leaning towards one-day cricket, and now Henry Cooper is bringing his one-day cricket up to match his Plunkett Shield work. So I'm just very happy to see those 3 younger dudes in that upper echelon of Ford Trophy run scoring.
Yeah, guys with 200 plus runs and strike rates above 100. Colin Munro, 326 runs, strike rate 144.24. He's a mile ahead of everyone else. Who else have we got there? Henry Cooper, 227, strike rate of 103.65. Tom Bruce, 208 runs, 111.22. And Rachin Ravindra, exactly 200 runs from 4 innings as well, from an innings less. 113.63 strike rate. He scored his first, I think it was his first list day 100, wasn't it, the other week? And I think I'm right in saying, because he has played New Zealand A at list day, whatever you call it, format before, level. I think I'm right in saying, though, these are his first 4 trophy games away.
Could be. He might have played last summer. I don't know, but
he might have snuck in a sneaky game or 2 or something. But I think, in the very least, this will be the first season where he's a regular for Wellington, and showing what whoever they are, the powers that be, have been seeing in him for a year or 2, because he really has been fast tracked. I mean, he was in that New Zealand A team last 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. He looks a bloody good player as well. And from what I had seen from him, I think the thing that's impressed me the most, because like we knew if he can show like the potential that's been seen in him, if he can show that, then we knew he could score runs. But I've been impressed, like that 100 that he scored. I was impressed by just some of the hitting involved, like just being able to pick boundaries and score at a quick strike rate was pretty impressive from that dude.
The Northern Districts Knights they're interesting me because of Tim Seifert's lack of runs. He's only averaging 23.5 with a strike rate of 65. He does have 150 plus score, but he's not exactly coming back to domestic cricket to command further Black Caps opportunities after a fairly ho-hum little Black Caps stint recently. But the three leading players for Northern Districts with the bat, you got Henry Cooper, Kartene Clark, and Joe Carter. So three of the younger players are doing a lot of the work for Northern Districts in the Ford Trophy. Kartene Clark has especially caught my eye just with the steadiness of his runs, and he plays his shots up the top of the order. He is very similar to Tim Seifert in just how attacking and aggressive they are at the top of the order, but he's shat all over Tim Seifert. Like, he's got scores of 22, 48, 55, 36, 26. So he's just getting their innings off to a nice start pretty much every time. He's got a strike rate of 94. So after 5 games, and these are his first 5 games of his career, so Kartene Clark is emerging as someone just to watch out for with the Knights, but that is in conjunction with the narrative of Tim Seifert just struggling to really kick on after coming back from international cricket.
Yeah, which I guess is one of those ones. I mean, we're looking at it just, as you're saying that, peeking down to see some of the numbers from some of these spinners as well. And it's, yeah, but beyond Will Somerville, it's not massively pretty, but like, I mean, because Ish Sodhi's a guy I've been keeping an eye on because we've been talking about him a lot. He's taken 4 wickets in 5 games from 50 overs, bowling out in every single game. Only getting the 4 wickets, hasn't got more than 1 in any of those innings, but I suppose what you'd say for his case is he's also bowling at an RPO of 4.7, which is pretty bloody excellent in the old what do you call it, 2020 era cricket. If you can keep him under 5s, I mean, that's an overall score of under 250. I think any batting lineup in the Ford Trophy is going to back themselves to chase 250 if that's the case. So still doing a job there. It's a little bit trickier to look at some of these bowlers, I think, because just the sample size is felt more obviously from just 5 games, because guys aren't necessarily bowling all their overs, guys aren't necessarily playing every game, and it does affect things quite substantially, and which is why no one's really run out ahead of the pack. But
you've got a whole lot of right-arm seamers or seam bowlers who have run out ahead.
Yeah, I guess so.
Ollie Newton,
Seth France, Ben Lister,
Ollie Newton is dominating one-day cricket. Like, same with Ben Lister. Both these dudes have started their domestic careers very, very hot in one-day cricket. Ollie Newton started his career hot in every format, but he's got a career Ford Trophy average of 18.12, and he is leading all wicket takers in the Ford Trophy. Ben Lister, we've talked about. Seth Rance, 3rd, just doing standard Seth Rance business. Nathan Smith is emerging as an all-rounder to watch out for the Otago Volts. He had a Plunket Shield century prior to this Ford Trophy campaign. He's sitting in 4th for wickets in this Ford Trophy now, so he is a strong performer with bat and ball for the Otago Volts. And you mentioned the spinners there, Wildcard. The best thing about, like, it's one thing to, like, when I talk about how much the fringe black cap spinners have struggled, that's just to share the information. I don't have an opinion on it. I'm just like stating what's happened, because I'm also interested in who are the spinners that are performing. And Will Somerville is basically the only spinner here averaging below 30. But then you've got these part-timers, Dean Foxcroft with Otago and Malcolm Knopfel with Wellington, do great jobs for their teams. They both average between 30 and 40, but their place in the team is predominantly batsmen who also bowl spin, or just straight up and down all-rounders who provide their team and their captain with those options. And they both have over 5 wickets and do serviceable jobs for their teams. And then Otago also have Michael Rippon, the lefty leggy. But just having those little tweakers to bang in a couple of overs here. Rachin Ravindra also bowls spin, and he has 4 wickets at 38, so he's doing a nice little job for the Wellington Firebirds as well. So those kind of job-doing spinners are where it's at in the Ford Trophy thus far, apart from Will Somerville, who has 8 wickets at 24. He got half of those wickets in one innings as well, 4 for 48. So interesting little spin situation. It has been kind of boring just with how much the standard, typical Kiwi medium pacer has dominated the Ford Trophy thus far, though.
And that thing about like Will Somerville getting half his wickets in one of those 4 games, sort of thing, is one of those major factors that does affect the way some of these stats are still struggling to like just take full complete clarity at this point, because one big effort really does shoot you up there. Like Ben Lister took a 5 for and has 11 wickets overall from 5 innings, but only 33.3 overs, interestingly. Whereas Ollie Newton at the top there with 13 wickets has a best bowling of 3 for 32. So he's taken 13 wickets in 5 games, hasn't taken more than 3 for in any single game, which shows you that he's just consistently picking up wickets along the way, because the strike rate of 21.6, like if this was international cricket, 21.6 is something similar to what, like, I think it might be 1 or 2 up on what Shane Bond's ODI numbers were at his peak. So, like, it's a pretty good indication that you're picking up solid wickets. If you're not getting them in bulks, but you are getting them just regularly, game after game, just chipping away, constantly picking out guys especially at the top of the order, if you're so lucky, like that's a solid performer right there. And you're right, though, it is a lot of just Kiwi medium pacer type bowling here, which we'll see how it goes. I mean, Lockie Ferguson got 5 for, but only played 2 games.
Ben Lister's taken a wicket in every game, so he is still chipping in with wickets, every wicket, yes. And he's doing a great job. There is let's roll through some of these key spinner stats. So Ajaz Patel averaging 73, Todd Astle averaging 51. You got Ish Sodhi averaging 58. So that's kind of the... Jeetan Patel's averaging 45 as well. He's not immune to this little flu that is going around the best spinners in Aotearoa. So you would kind of, like, for a couple of these lads coming into T20 Super Smash cricket, this is going to be a pivotal little juncture in their summers, because those kind of spinners tend to do pretty well in the shorter format. Just, again, like, it's the same thing with the Auckland batsmen setting things up for their bowlers and dictating the tempo. In T20 cricket, the tempo is already kind of decided on. You have to play to a certain tempo, and that tends to play into the hands of those attacking spinners because people are trying to hit boundaries. So what are these dudes going to do in the Super Smash? It's very interesting. Considering none of them are really making a strong case to surpass Mitchell Santner at the moment, and the Super Smash is going to present them with a lot of opportunities because batsmen are going to be trying to hit them out of the park, and if these dudes still can't quite take many wickets, it's going to be a tough patch for those spinners.
Yes, although I guess the old, coming back to the idea of scoreboard pressure again, if you're someone like Ish Sodhi who is keeping them relatively tight in terms of like the RPOs, he's someone who tends to thrive in that 2020 situation because he can turn the ball both ways once you get batsmen trying to swing and just closing their eyes and going for it. He gets a lot of wickets caught on the boundary kind of thing, just top edges and getting guys slightly deceived as they try to get aggressive against him. So that's the point here. At least getting
that's the point, is that that's how things have gone. Now, none of these dudes have come into a Super Smash averaging over 50, or coming in off a being surpassed in the Black Caps or struggling with the Black Caps. Like, all of those dudes, apart from Will Somerville, won't be overly confident in their craft, and now they're coming into an arena which should suit them, and what happens here is going to be crucial because they can regain confidence or things can add up a bit and start to, if Todd Astle and Ish Sodhi struggle in the Super Smash, that's going to put them in an awkward position in the greater Kiwi cricketing landscape, because there's other spinners who are doing well. We've mentioned Will Somerville here. Mitchell Santner's not doing anything wrong with the Black Caps across all three formats. So for any of these spinners to get back in the Black Caps, they have to blast that door open. Whereas right now, for most of those spinners, their confidence is low. So how that affects their bowling in the Super Smash is what I'm interested in, and whether they can fall back on how they tend to perform well in T20 cricket with batsmen looking to attack them, whether that's going to work out or whether it's going to compile and they're going to, fall deeper into this little shitty patch that they're in. Very interesting times for the spinners.
I reckon that RPO is a good sign, though, for Ish Sodhi, also for Jeetan Patel. His is at 4.67. I reckon if you're at least not getting picked off for constant runs, and often that is just one boundary and a couple of singles an over kind of thing, but if you're able to, at least, even if you're not getting the wickets in the one day stuff at this point, I think the RPO stuff for those two is a good sign moving forward. At least something to hang the hat on coming into the Super Smash. However, Todd Astle's RPO is just a shade under a runner ball, so perhaps that one doesn't extend as far as our old mate Todd.
I beg to differ. I think it's all about wickets for those dudes.
You reckon?
You need to take wickets. It's all about wickets, especially with the white ball, because Aotearoa, it's fine. If you want to be economical, that's fine. You're not going to get anywhere with it because Aotearoa already has an economical spinner.
But I think in 2020s, it being economical does lead to wickets.
Yeah, but
at least a lot more so than it does in ODI.
When that happens,
one days.
None of these dudes are taking wickets now. So what do you? I can just see a situation where you got to take wickets, and if Ish Sodhi and Todd Astle, if they come into Super Smash and they're not taking wickets but they're conceding less than 5 runs and over, no one's going to care, because you need to take wickets to differentiate yourself from each other, from the pack that you're in with that little spinning crew. And there's other spinners who are doing all right, like Malcolm Knopfel, less than 6 runs and over, 5 wickets in the Ford Trophy. Dean Foxcroft, 6 wickets, 4.9 RPO. So there's spinners who are doing better jobs at containment. There's spinners who are more designed for containment. Leggies especially, you got to take wickets. It's all about wickets with those leggies. And there might be, that Dan Vittori kind of situation where no wickets, 3 runs per over, we're happy. We'll just let them play out. And I can see domestic teams, especially against someone like Ish Sodhi, they will be more inclined to just see him out for 5 runs and over and not let him control the game with his wickets. But in terms of putting yourself in a more confident space, in terms of differentiating yourself, and in terms of getting back into the Black Caps, it's all about wickets, because no one's going to look at, he took, he didn't take many wickets, but he was economical. Well, we've got other bowlers who can do an economical job as well, whether it's seam or whether it's spin. You gotta differentiate yourself as a X factor wicket taker.
Yeah, that much we're certainly 100% in agreement on, because if that sort of added level of whatever, that's the worry with someone like Ish Sodhi, is that because he's more of a name, guys would just do the Dan Vittori round and take him, pick 6 and over and say, this is all you're going to get from us. We're not going to take those risks. We're not going to let you, play little games and get us with the wrong ends or whatever, or get us getting too aggressive. 2020 batsmen are going to be more quick to shift gears. In fact, they're probably going to be coming out starting in those gears up a bit. So like there will be more risks involved. There will be more opportunities for some of that, like for steady, solid, relatively economical bowling to translate into wickets. But if it doesn't, then that's concerning, because I don't know where you go from that point. Like, how else do you get the wickets if guys aren't gonna give you what you need there? So that is certainly one to keep an eye on. Probably one of the more interesting things actually leading into the Super Smash to think about, I suppose.
Definitely, and I mean, you could celebrate Ajaz Patel, 1 wicket, RPO of 3.65, most economical bowler.
Only played 2 games though.
In the Ford Trophy. Well, he's only played 2 games because he's only got 1 wicket.
Yeah, well.
So that's the thing.
Took 5 for he'd have been playing a few more, yes.
You got to take wickets to... your job as a bowler starts with taking wickets. So it's one thing to concede, be the only bowler, bloody hell, in the Ford Trophy with a wicket, by the looks of things, to be conceding less than 4 runs and over. That's Ajaz Patel. So he's dotting them up, but are you taking wickets? And that's the major factor here. Do you have any other... I had a very strange cricketing thought, and I was like, watching that test between the Black Caps, I was thinking, cricket is one of the few sports where literally everything changes as you move up the levels. Like, you're a club cricketer, you're going to be playing 2 days, and that's going to be split between weekends. Then you move up to, let's just skip a few levels. You move up to Plunket Shield. That's a 4-dayer. Completely different. You go from playing 2 Saturdays to playing 4 days in a row. Then you get to Test cricket, and you're playing 5 days in a row that you have absolutely no preparation for. You've never played 5 days of cricket in a row, because anything below that, either like a tour match, you're going to have 3 days, or a Plunket Shield match, you're going to have 4 days. So I was just buzzing out about that wildcard, just how different the formats are, and to me it just plays into the unique beast of Test cricket and how we judge performances in Test cricket, specifically how players start their Test careers and then move through the phases of their Test career, because for pretty much everyone who comes into Test cricket, they have never played a format of cricket where you play 5 consecutive days. So there's no preparation for that, let alone doing so against the best players in the world. It's not like we play an 80-minute game of rugby and all that changes is the quality of the opposition and the quality of players that you're playing with. In cricket, you're not only changing the whole format, specifically with long-form cricket, like obviously there are different formats, but specifically in long-form cricket, you got 2 days, you got 3 days. Like, as you move through the levels to get to Test cricket, it's different at every level. And then you're not only figuring out something you've never done before, you're doing so against the best players in the world. Like, it's an absolute unique situation.
Yeah, it's a trippy one, isn't it? Because, like, imagine if you weren't allowed to play tackle rugby until you were selected for the All Blacks, eh? I mean, it's not quite as drastic as that, but it's on that similar kind of scale. And I'd imagine, like, the toughest part of that is to do what England had to do last week, where, like, look at guys like Ollie Pope, who's only played a handful of Test matches. I think what's his name, Sibley, was on debut on the first Test day. So, like, that dude out there in the field for 200 consecutive overs as BJ Watling and Mitchell Santner and the rest of the Black Caps piled on the runs in the first Test. Like, to be fielding for 200 overs. I mean, we were talking about how tough it was from BJ Watling, the absolute little master, to be batting for over 11 hours. Well, the England fielders were out there for a lot longer. And, I mean, sure, they didn't have the ball coming fired towards their face at however many Ks an hour for that entirety of that innings. But, like, that's got to be so grueling, and then to come out and try to save a Test match after that, and for the bowlers to just keep going and going and going. Like, Jofra Archer, this is another example of the same thing. He bowled 40-odd overs in that innings, and he had never bowled that many in first-class cricket before, let alone in a test match, which he's still relatively new to as well. Like, there's no real preparation for that, is there? Like, there's only one way to learn it, and that's to get out there and, like, sink or swim, basically.
Correct. And that is, like, whether it's, players in New Zealand that we are we've always said that you got to give time to settle into Test cricket. And then you look at someone like Jofra Archer, who everyone's been talking about, like, his lack of pace. He's barely bowled over 140 kilometers per hour. And that's seen as like some negative factor, but no one knows that Jofra Archer might have a niggling injury that he still needs to bowl on, because that's his job for his country, or the fact that Jofra Archer has never done this before. He's never experienced anything like this before, and that might be a factor as well. So it's been interesting, especially with Jofra Archer, just how he's, the hype around him prior to the series. People in New Zealand were talking about what the New Zealanders were going to do to fight fire with fire. Well, there's been no fire to fight against. But I have always tended to side with the players, and I'm learning to side with the players even more, because especially Test cricket, it's a whole different beast. And then you've got all these other factors behind the scenes that no one knows anything about except for Simon Doull, who seems to know absolutely everything about everything.
Or at least claims to, and pretends and talks as though he does know all of these things, which, I mean, do you think, like, because some of those guys, like Ian Smith seems like a pretty cheerful old fella. He seems like a guy who should probably be playing Santa Claus at the local, shopping centre kind of thing over the next few weeks. Like, he, I would imagine, is pretty chummy with a fair few of the players. I know he gets on quite well with Ross Taylor, because they're both from, that old general kind of Central Districts region. There's like Craig McMillan, whether people are friendly with him, he doesn't seem like a person anyone would really be that friendly with per se, but everyone knows him because he was the coach. Mike Hesson doesn't seem to be at the second test, but he was there. But and say what you want about Mike Richardson, he's a massive tool a lot of the time, but he does seem like he at least has a awareness of that, and he's joking around a lot of the time, and he'd probably be all right for a laugh now and then if you just sort of like passing on your way out for a net session early morning or something like that. But Simon Doull doesn't really seem like someone who'd be anyone's friend, eh? Like, he doesn't seem like of the commentators. You'd say g'day to him, you might stop, have a few words, kind of thing. But he doesn't seem like the guy you'd confide in, does he?
I give zero thought to that. Sorry, I don't think about Simon Doull.
That's all the thought it requires. You wouldn't confide in Simon Doull. You wouldn't tell him your innermost secrets about why you're struggling to score the runs on this big long tour or something like that.
Simon Doull will beg to differ, because everything he says is a fact.
Of course.
We will wrap it up there and be back. Day 5 of the Black Caps test is going on at the moment. So tomorrow we will podcast about the Black Caps test cricket. We've got domestic cricket yarns all over the niche cache. Just wrote about Jerry Ajit Raval and his lack of runs at the moment. So check that out if that's your buzz. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening. You can support the niche cache directly on Patreon, or just listening is more than enough. Kia kaha, stay beautiful.